where today we are going to be looking at Saturn and how it got its rings. So we're going to be covering that. So first off, what we want to do is we want to make its rings pretty big, and that don't work. Okay, so we put that there. Rings, make that 8. Put plenty of material in orbit. So now Saturn has a absolutely massive ring system. So what I think happened was Saturn, I have no idea how, but I think Saturn actually had a very large moon at the beginning, so it was like probably not very big, so probably about 40 moons in size. So as this ginormous moon orbited Saturn, it changed the rings over time, so you started seeing gaps here, and it does become quite messy in the beginning. But I think that the moons around Saturn today came from this absolutely massive moon compressing some of the material, so you had a new moon form there, smaller moons form out here, but you had the bigger moons form in the ring itself, and over time, this is in hours, by the way, it's simulations in hours, so if we speed it up a little bit, it might be laggy. If it is laggy, then I apologise. It's just because I've got so much dust from the rings, and it's just going all over the place. But I reckon that Saturn gained a lot of moons from this one giant. It was either a captured planet that is very unlikely, or as Saturn was forming, it had this absolutely massive ring around it where it's collapsing into the planet, and then a ginormous moon just started forming around it, and it slowed where the rings, it slowed how the rings were collapsing into the planet. So I mean, yes, most of the rings today came from hundreds of moons that have been ripped apart by Saturn, or have hit each other and turned into asteroids in orbit around Saturn. Now what we see here is, it might not be noticeable that much, but we can see a main ring here, an inner ring, and then a faint ring here, and another ring here. At least these are two rings that are very close to each other, but if we zoom out, then it's kind of quite messy. So we've already got some ring structure here, and I don't know where that moon's gone. Where did it go? Is this the moon? Yeah, it is. So this moon is also growing in size. It's gaining mass. So the real question is where did this moon go? Where did it go? It can't just disappear. It had to like go somewhere. It's either been ripped apart by Saturn, or it's been spat out of the Saturnian system altogether, and it's either like in orbit around the Oort cloud somewhere, or it's just been injected from the solar system altogether. But I think that this giant moon, I think that it helped Saturn form its rings, because if Saturn did have a lot of moons when its ring system was still stabilizing. Of course, Titan was there, but Titan, this is like Saturn's ring system. Titan was, I'll show you how far away Titan is. Titan is about here, and that is really, really far away. Like, I don't understand how Titan can change how Saturn's ring system looks, because the closer we've looked into Saturn's ring system, the smaller the moons have become. So there's like hundreds of tiny moons. They're actual moons. They're not like boulders. They're actual circular moons. They're spherical. They're not big enough to affect Saturn's rings. So the question is now, was there a big moon, a very big moon, and also how big was it? But also the really big question is, where's it gone? Like, it can't just vanish. I reckon, and I reckon that the moon was nearly as big as the Earth, so it's pretty big moon, like pretty big. But it did create a lot of friction on Saturn, in Saturn's atmosphere. It may have actually created a bulge so big that, just like what the moon does to Earth, it slows down the rotational period. So I think that this gigantic moon slowed down Saturn. So Saturn now has a nearly 11 hours a day, and this ring system is becoming quite big. But oh, look at that, we have got some ring structure here. Got a main ring here, we got another fainter ring here, and we've got a quite fuzzy, it's hard to see, but it's split. There's another ring here. Oh, what happened there? Oh yeah, also if you look here, the rings, the inner ring, it doesn't orbit the planet. Like, it's not circular around the planet, it's more like an oval shape. That's because the gravitational pull from this moon is so strong that it warps the moon, the ring, sorry, my apologies, the ring. So I don't know what you guys think. I think that Saturn, when Saturn was first forming, I think Saturn, when Saturn was forming, I think Saturn had a huge ring around it, and some of that debris in that ring system formed a gigantic moon, a little bit smaller than the Earth, and I think that is how Saturn has gotten gaps in between of its rings. Because if we look at, like, if I load up another system, another simulation, and I put Saturn in like this, and I just put some rings in, let's see what happens. Alright, I'm just letting it run. right? And yeah, there are like a little bit of gaps like here and there, but they're not like completely around the planet. These ringlets are all scattered around, so they can't. If there isn't a big object, right? If there isn't a really big object, I don't know. Say around here, then it's not going to be able to stabilize the system. And look at that, instantly there are gaps in the ring. There are gaps. That is quite something. There, look, you can, right around the planet there are gaps, and that proves that I believe that Saturn once used to have a moon slightly smaller than the Earth, and that moon affected Saturn's ring. So Saturn's ring was like, when it's first forming, it was massive. It's like huge, because when a gas giant's first forming, of course it's going to have a humongous ring, because it's orbiting a star, and the system's new, and it's constantly eating, like it's acquiring materials to form the gas giant and its moons. But I think this I think that this has unlocked something new. I think that we now possibly have a better understanding of how rings around a planet form, for one, and for two, rings that have gaps in them obviously means that there is a very large astronomical body around that planet that is obviously affecting the ring system, and you can definitely see there are gaps. Like if I zoom out around here, you can see there's one big gap here. It goes right around the planet, and you've got little smaller gaps here. So if I add in just 3 more here, and then I'll let it run, just speed it up a little bit. I'm going to speed up a little bit, and look at that. That is something. That is amazing. That is something that is just blown my mind. So I don't know what you guys think. Don't forget to drop a comment into the comment section below. Also don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video with your friends or with people that you know, and just leave what you think, because I think that's when Saturn was first forming. Saturn was quite hot, so it's about, I put it at 1,000 degrees. So Saturn was really warm. Obviously it was giving off just a little bit of light, because Saturn was still forming, and it had this ring around it. And I think that there was this gigantic moon around Saturn, absolutely massive moon. I think it was about the size of Earth, because I've tested it with a planet the size of Mercury, well, with a moon the size of Mercury and the moon the size of Mars, and they didn't have the right gravitational tug to affect the rings. So then I did a Venus-sized moon, and that did affect. That did that did affect the ring system, but I didn't get the results that I wanted to see. So I thought, oh, let's just make a moon that's in between the size of Venus and Earth. And Earth is 81.3 moons in mass, and Venus is 66.2 moons in mass. and I put the moon around, like, I know that this moon is smaller than Venus, and it's actually done a pretty good job at like, look at this ginormous gap. You could easily fit a moon in here. Look at that. Look at that. That is just absolutely amazing. That really does show something. It really does. And it has actually warped the ring. So it's not completely flat, but I have expected this. And I know we don't see any warping in Saturn's rings today, because obviously the hypothetical giant moon is not there anymore. And I say hypothetical because I'm not sure it because to me, I think that a giant moon formed, and it was a pretty big moon, and this is it is pretty big. So it's like in between a Venus and Mars size, and I think that it affected Saturn in a way where it didn't just warp the planet slightly. You could definitely see there is some warping in the planet, like the planet is not even bloody circular. But with the rings as well, the rings they're curved upwards and downwards. It's because of how the moon is orbiting the planet. It's orbiting the planet, not in the same lane or the same inclination of the rings orbit around the equator of Saturn, but the moon, it orbits just like a little bit, like it's a little bit off of the equator of Saturn, so that's why it's affected the ring system the way it has. But I think this is something new. I think hopefully NASA looks at this, because this could really help us understand of how not only moons form around planets, but how planets form around stars. Because I think that I think I'm onto something here, because not only have we, I say we because I think that you guys help me out a lot by subscribing and commenting, but I think because this is a breakthrough, because if Saturn did indeed have a ginormous moon in its early days, then that proves that I'm right. But if it didn't, then how did its rings become so calm? How did they get like gaps in between them? Because for all we know is without a moon of obviously of a certain size, bigger than Mars, of a moon bigger than Mars, it has to be bigger than Mars, not by definitely by mass, but by radius, so it has to be bigger. I think that this shows that we are on, well, I'm onto something. Well, we are onto something, because this is just outstanding. Because look at these gaps. The gaps, they appear and they disappear. Like, look at this. Like, look at that gap. That is one massive gap. I mean, I know it becomes bigger here and then thinner here, but over time the ring system should become more like it is today. So it should have like more gaps in it, and the gaps, they are becoming more and more profound. But I think because the gas giants obviously form closer to the sun, and of course, if any of you have watched How the Universe Works documentaries, they talk about like Jupiter, Saturn. Jupiter orbits the sun twice for every time Saturn orbits the sun once, and what that means is every time Jupiter orbits the sun twice, and Saturn orbits the Sun once. When you have like Jupiter here and Saturn here, when they're lined up, they almost like mess up the entire system, and that was when they were forming. And of course that pushed the gas giants out. But I think that this ginormous moon, I think it had something to play in it, because Saturn can obviously hold this moon. It can obviously hold this moon, and this moon, even though it's affecting the ring system and it's like it's warped it a bit, and it's creating gaps in the ring. I think that this moon, because Saturn was closer, I think that this moon was more Earth-like. I really do think, and that's not me kidding. I think that it was more Earth-like. Because if anybody's watched the film Avatar, of course Polyphemus, the gas giant, is in the habitable zone of Alpha Centauri Alpha. That's Alpha Centauri A, if nobody knows what that is. Saturn wasn't in the habitable zone, but still, I think that this moon was close enough to Saturn where Saturn could squeeze the core of the moon, so it can heat up the core, and then because I think that the moon was big enough to hold onto an atmosphere, like a thick atmosphere. So it was probably a little bit thicker than Earth's. So it also had enough gravity to hold on to any water. So I think that there was once, billions of years ago, even before Earth got water, I think that Saturn once had a moon that was Earth. It sounds crazy, but I think that Saturn once used to have a moon that was habitable for life, and then Saturn drifted out, and I think that killed off the planet, the moon. I think that killed everything off, because of the violent pushing from Jupiter, and the outer and Uranus and Neptune. I think either the giant moon smashed into Saturn, or it was thrown out and hit another planet. But I think, now I've just thought of this, I think that's where Theia came from, because Theia was in between the size of Venus and Mars. I think that's where Theia came from, to be honest. And I might sound absolutely crazy, and if you think I'm crazy, then type it in the comments below. But if you agree with me, also type in the comments below if you agree with me. Hit that subscribe button and like this video. Don't forget to share it. If you would like to see some more videos of this, please say in the comments below, and I'll see ya. This is the Arduous Moth signing out.